What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Clint here from the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is the post weigh-in recap brought to you by Odds HQ, and we've got a good one today. UFC 253. These weigh-ins were spectacular for a lot of different reasons. We got a lot of things to talk about, so let's go ahead and dive on in to see what we found, what we saw at the weigh-ins that may provide us that extra little nugget of opportunity to make some cash betting on the UFC fights this weekend. Kicking our night off, we've got Kadis Ibragimov taking on Danilo Marques. Now, if you follow me over at Die Hard MMA Pod on Twitter, you know I've already taken a stab here at the dog on Danilo Marques. What I saw, both men came in at 206, and Kadis needed the towel immediately. He was the last one to make it to the weigh-ins. He was wiping himself off. He apparently was cutting weight up until the very last second. And honestly, he looked lost and out of sorts when he was on the scales. Now, this is the kind of body language that I'm looking for. This is a perfect example of a spot that Kadis did not look good to me. Now, Danilo Marques, on the other hand, this dude's huge. He's much, much bigger than Kadis is, and he looked in great shape. We haven't seen him fight professionally for a couple of years, and a lot of people saw that as a red flag, very concerning. I can agree with that, but he looked fantastic, and he didn't have any like extra body weight, extra flab hanging off of him or anything. He looked good to go. He made weigh-ins on the first try, looked like he had plenty of energy, locked in, and when they had the stare down, it was very good. It was a good stare down, and honestly, Kadis backed down. Now, Ibragimov is coming off of a 3-fight skid here in the UFC. He has yet to win. He was undefeated before he got to the UFC. He's been finished 2 of those 3 losses, and somehow he's getting this 4th shot. Now he's facing this big man. It looks like he had a bad weight cut, and I don't understand what's happening here. Money is coming in on Kadis Ibragimov. I don't get it. Kadis has a very limited skill set. I know that Danilo Marques is sort of a question mark, but having what appears to have been a difficult weight cut, you can't trust that kind of fighter. This read backs my opinion of Danilo Marques. I think he's going to snap up Kadis's neck. I think Kadis is going to gas out like he always does, and we're going to get a round 2 submission from Marques, who is a brown belt trained under Damian freaking Maia. I like the dog in the very first fight of the night. Next fight up, we've got Juan Espino taking on Jeff Hughes. Now, Espino came in at 255. He's been off for about 2 years. He broke his hands. He's had some surgeries. He's getting older. This is a spot that I really was looking at Jeff Hughes. I thought maybe I want to fade this guy, take the opportunity to go against him. And in fact, my opinion is completely flipped upside down. Juan Espino was all smiles. He looked fantastic on the scales. He wasn't flabby. He was well muscled, in shape, 255, nice cut, clean, very relaxed. I saw everything I wanted to see from Juan Espino. Jeff Hughes, on the other side of things, he came in at 258. Even though he's the smaller man, he was much, much heavier, and he had a ton of extra flab on him. His gut had a couple of extra rolls. He had some man boobage going on, and what that speaks to is a guy who was not prepared for a fight. It's a guy who's essentially rolling off the couch to take a match. He hasn't fought in a while. Maybe he needs the money. Maybe being 0-2-1 in the UFC, this was the only fight that he could take. Maybe he didn't have an option. They were going to cut him if he didn't. We don't really know, but what I'm seeing on the scales is not the Jeff Hughes that we are used to seeing when he is geared up and ready to go for a fight. So when you combine that with the sheer grappling prowess of Juan Espino, I think this is a hammer spot on him. What I did is I went ahead and made a parlay, and Juan Espino is one of the legs in that parlay. I'm going to go ahead and back him here. And when they faced off, Jeff just looked really uncomfortable. Juan Espino is the much, much bigger man, and Jeff did not look confident. He looked like a little bit lost. He was kind of fidgeting when he was facing off with his opponent. All these things speak to broken confidence, in my opinion. And I think that Juan Espino is a good play at this point to make. Next fight up, William Knight taking on Aleksa Camur. Knight made 205, and this dude is just a muscle-bound monster. Big flex, No apparent issues with the weigh-in. I liked everything that I saw. Aleksa Camur came in at 206, and he looked pretty thick as well. No problems on his end. What really spoke to me here on the face-offs was just how much bigger Camur was than Knight. Now, if you follow me once again, you know I've already got a bet on Knight. I got plus 155 on him. We beat the line move. That's down to about plus 135, plus 140 market wide at this point. So we did our jobs. We got the best number on Knight, but honestly, at this point, I wouldn't suggest necessarily making that bet The value is a little bit gone if you're getting him around plus 130 or plus 120. You know, that's just that's not the place that you want to be with this kid. And on top of that, seeing the size discrepancy, I didn't think it would be as severe as it was. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable on my spot here on William Knight. Shane Young taking on Ludovit Klein. This is going to be an excellent fight. Shane Young came in at 146, looked in great shape, good mood. I liked everything that I saw from him. Ludovit Klein came in at 150. He missed weight by a full 4 pounds, which is the maximum that you're allowed to miss weight by. He needed the towel. He knew he was in trouble, but he looked extremely well muscled, and he did the big no-no. After you miss weight, you're not allowed to talk shit. He flexed afterward, which I'm like, all right, you know, maybe you can take a good picture with all that extra muscle on you, but it doesn't look good when you're not a professional, you don't make weight, and then you try and flex on your opponent. It doesn't fly with me. So he's filling in here on short notice. We know he's a short notice replacement. He's a very, very well-muscled type of fighter. He was probably getting ready, staying in shape, but not quite ready to make the cut as quickly as this fight presented itself. So I guess we'll give him a little bit of pass on that. It does look like he at least attempted to make weight. Like I said, he needed the towel to get there. And then when they faced off, it was actually pretty awesome. Shane Young did a haka, you know, the ones where they're like slapping their chest and doing like the tribal warfare stuff. Think Hawaiian, like that's what he did. He came out and did his haka right there on the stage in front of Ludovit Klein. Really, you know, to me speaks to the energy level, the confidence. I'm ready for this fight. I'm so ready for this fight. It was a good stare down. Both men look pumped up. Both guys are capable of finishing the fight. I'm on the under 2.5 in this spot. Those people who got in on Klein early, maybe not a bad look. You got the nice dog price there. But Shane Young is very, very dangerous. And now this thing is down closer to a pick'em. I'm not touching it. You can get plus 100. The line is completely flipped. Shane Young is officially the underdog. Honestly, I don't hate that look, especially with his opponent coming in overweight. But like I said, I'm on the under. And with Klein coming in overweight, having those extra 4 pounds on him, that might add to his popping power. And if he's able to land a big bomb and put Shane Young down, that just cashes my bet for me that much easier. I like that spot. Diego Sanchez taking on Jake Matthews. Now, Sanchez, obviously a legend in the sport. He came in all smiles, tripped on his shorts on his way to the scale. That doesn't have any effect on the betting information that I'm giving you, but I thought it was funny. He was in a good mood. It looks like he had a good cut, made 170, no problem. Jake Matthews, same thing, very professional. Very professional. He's done this a million times before. He made 170. No issues on his side of things either. When they faced off, we knew Jake Matthews was going to be bigger, right? But both these guys have experience at 155. They both could be fighting a division smaller. Jake Matthews is the much larger man. It was a respectful weigh-in. Nothing really to speak to here. We know that line is extremely wide. I'm steering completely clear of this one. The prop bet of Jake Matthews winning by decision is right about even money. That's maybe not a bad way to look. Or you could play the under 2.5 at a plus price if you think one of these guys is going to go out there, scrap, and get the finish. I'm not sure what to make of it. I hate the line from all sides. This is going to be a fireball and popcorn fight for me. Get your favorite drink, get your favorite snack, hang out and just watch the fight, sit back and enjoy. Next up, we've got Brad Riddell taking on Aleksa Silva. This is going to be a hell of a fight. Both men came in at 156, and Brad Riddell looked good, looked solid. Business as usual, consummate professional. Love seeing what this guy does. De Silva came in, and he's absolutely shredded. He's one of those guys that just, you can see every single vein, every single muscle. And honestly, he was wearing a mask. He was very, very hard for me to read. For some reason, it felt like he looked a little apprehensive to me. I don't know if all I could see was his eyes. I couldn't see his facial expression or anything like that, but he seemed a little worried almost. I'm not quite sure. Brad, I thought, was going to be at a decent size disadvantage here in this fight. I thought Silva was going to be a decent bit larger, and I'm pleased to say that Brad sized up really well with De Silva. I think this is going to be a heck of a fight. Respectful face-off. Not a whole lot to speak to there. I have Brad Riddell in a parlay myself already, so I like everything that I'm seeing from that spot, but realistically, this is one of those wash weigh-in spots. You're not getting anything from either guy. Both guys look good. Both guys did their job, so your pre-weigh-in read probably should stay pretty much intact here on this one. Hakeem Dawodu and Zubaira Tukhugov. This is another one that's very, very interesting in my opinion. Now, Hakeem Dawodu came in at 145, on point, shredded, intense as ever. They call this guy Mean Hakeem for a reason. Now, Zubaira Tukhugov, he came in at 150. Once again, we've got another fighter that missed by the maximum 4-pound over allowance, and he's going to owe his opponent some of his winnings because of that weight miss. Now, this is a spot where I feel like he just didn't remember where he was supposed to be fighting because he didn't try. He didn't come in wiping sweat off himself. He wasn't doing cardio right before the weigh-in. He didn't use the box of shame. He didn't need the towel. He wasn't trying to cut down there. He just walked up, smiled, and not only did he flex, he double flexed. This is a big red flag in my opinion, a big no-no. Zubaira Tukhugov knew exactly what he was doing. He came in overweight purposefully. If he was having a bad weight cut, he must have realized it and stopped cutting about 2 weeks ago, because there is no way you miss by that amount and you come in as calm and relaxed as he does. Now, this is the guy who we know almost got kicked out of the UFC for leaping over the cage and sucker punching Conor McGregor after the Conor and Khabib incident. Zubaira Tukhugov, he's one of these guys that is a natural born fighter, and I like watching him in the cage. I don't think he's a very good person. So him cheating, or essentially coming in overweight on purpose to improve his cardio and punching power, this is the kind of guy that I would fully expect that kind of a move from. So if you're on Zubaira Tukhugov, if you got in early on him, you probably are on the right side here. I talked about the volume of Hakeem Dawodu. I talked about liking what I see from him striking-wise. He's solid everywhere, but he's got that chin issue. He gets clipped. He gets wobbled. That happens almost every time, and he's going to present that opportunity to Tukhugov in this fight. Now, Zubaira Tukhugov is about a -140 favorite. Again, that kind of makes sense to me. With opponents missing weight, I usually will fade them. That's a spot where I go, you struggled, your weight cut sucked, you're probably sucked out a little bit. We need to bet against this man. Not in this case. Like I said, if it's done purposefully, if it's done intentionally, if he's relaxed and confident and looks at peace with what he's done, that's not a spot where you want to bet against them. They have a significant advantage in that fight as opposed to having a disadvantage. So I know on the podcast earlier, I said that I might take a look at Hakeem Dawodu at plus money when he gets there. He's sitting at plus 120 right now. If you like Hakeem Dawodu, go ahead, go for it. But I would caution you because of what we saw from Tukhugov at the weigh-ins. Now, these guys locked eyes. Great stare down. Hakeem did not want to walk away. He looks dialed in, ready to go. Very, very mean in this situation. I know I already said mean, but that's the only way to describe this kid. What I did instead is took the under 2.5. This is a spot where we are getting a plus line on a guy who's coming in overweight, who's going to have more pop on his punches, more ability to hit harder, probably better cardio, so he'll be able to push that first round stunning pace that he comes out with even harder than he normally does. And then Hakeem, a guy who's been wobbled before, and a guy that is fully capable of overwhelming and finishing his opponents later, where if I'm wrong, let's say Zubaira Tukhugov did try to cut the weight, let's say he did suck himself out, and this is just the best that he could do, and he's got a really damn good poker face. Well, you know what's going to happen then is Hakeem Dawodu is going to maul him. When he gasses out, when he runs out of cardio at about a round and a half, Hakeem is going to pour it on him and look to get him out of there. So I like the under 2.5. I got plus 180 on it, and I know both these guys are decision fighters more often than not, but they both have the ability to finish, and they both have the ability to get finished. I think that's a nice little dice roll spot. I'm going to go ahead and take the shot. Next up, we've got the only women's fight on the card. Ketlen Viera taking on Sijara Eubanks. Both women came in at 136 pounds. Ketlen Viera looked mean. She looked so dialed in and ready to go. She did flex, and she pointed to a name that's tattooed on her bicep. Not sure what that is. I'm going to have to go back and figure that out because that's got to have some personal meaning for her, but she looked ready to go. I liked everything that I saw from Ketlen Viera here. Sijara Eubanks came in at 136, but she needed the hoop of shame. She wasn't able to make the weight cut. We talked about how Sijara has had issues with her weight in the past, and people always pipe up and say, but Clint, that was at 125, not at 135. Aha. Well, here we have a short notice turnaround spot that I said I thought was going to be more difficult on her than she's expecting. She seems to have sorted out her weight cutting issues. She seems to do better at 135. However, this is the first time she's taken a short notice, quick turnaround spot like this, and she barely made it. I mean, she got there, but she needed the cone of shame, and that's something that I think speaks to the fact that maybe she's not going to be there cardio-wise that she was a couple of weeks ago. We will see what happens. But when they faced off, we didn't get any new information here. Ketlen Viera is much, much larger than Sijara Eubanks is. We knew that. We expected that. So really, this is another one that, honestly, it really just reinforces everything that I thought before. Ketlen Viera is the other leg of my parlay with Brad Riddell, and I really like this spot. I think she's going to be too big, too much to handle for Sijara Eubanks, and she's too good of a grappler for Sarge to be able to use that go-to back pocket grappling that she uses to win the majority of her fights. I think she's in trouble here, and especially if she did struggle a little bit with that quick turnaround, especially if her cardio is not quite where it needs to be because she's taking this short notice opportunity, then she's going to slow down later on, and Ketlen Viera should just be able to take over. I like Ketlen Viera in this spot, and I think she's a great parlay piece. Even though it's dangerous trusting the women's MMA fighters. I know, every time. So Kai Kara France taking on Brandon Royval. This is going to be a hell of a fight, one that I'm very, very excited for. So Kai Kara France, both men actually, came in at 126 pounds. Kai Kara looked pretty pumped up. He moved well, but one thing I noticed is that he went to rehydrate immediately after weighing in. Now, I know all these fighters are cutting weight. All of them need to get rehydrated and get those nutrients back inside their bodies, but this is one where he got off the scale, someone handed him a drink, and he started chugging. Like, he didn't continue walking off the scale. He didn't immediately, usually we see this process happen, but most people don't slam all the fluid they can the second after they make weigh-ins. I'm suspicious he may have had a slightly harder weight cut than we normally are used to seeing from Kai Kara France. His opponent, Brandon Royval. Geez, mixing up my names here. Royval practically jumped onto the scale. This kid is a ball of energy, and he couldn't sit still. He pops up, he makes weight, they call his name, he flexes for 2 seconds and gets off, and then the lady that runs the weigh-ins, she's yelling at him, you gotta come on the scale, you look at the camera, you gotta look at the camera, no, you're still not looking at the camera, Brandon, look at the camera. It was actually really hilarious to see, but I love how much energy this kid has. He's also got a significant size advantage. When they faced off, there's a big discrepancy, both height and reach, for Brandon Royval in this spot. And folks, this is my favorite dog on the card. I waited. I was patient. We knew we were going to grind it out. So many people were looking to bet Kai Kara France in this spot. We let that line tick up, and I locked it in. I'm taking Brandon Royval at plus 200. Big, juicy underdog. This kid is raw, unfiltered talent, and maybe this opportunity is a little too much, a little too soon for him. But getting 2-1 on my bet here, I think this is going to be a scrap. He never slows down. He has insanely creative striking, and if this hits the mat, I think he's going to snap Kai Kara France's neck. This is a great spot, a great dog that will fight for your money, and I love the line that we are getting after being patient and being rewarded, waiting on people to bet the other side of the fight here. I'm super comfortable at plus 200 on my underdog, Brandon Royval. This fight is going to get hairy, it's going to be close, and he's the type of fighter that will thrive in that chaos. Dominic Reyes, our co-main event. Both men come in at 205. Honestly, business as usual for Dominic Reyes. The only thing that I ever see with Dominic Reyes is how weird his torso is. This guy's got an abnormally long torso area. He's got such a strange body type. I don't know. Jan Blachowicz also came in at 205. He was actually the second man to make weight today. Looked good, looked confident, no issues whatsoever. Both these guys have been doing this for a long time, professional. They got it done. What I noticed at the face-offs, though, is that even though Jan is at a slight height disadvantage, boy is thick. Jan is really barrel-chested, really broad, really wide, thick neck. I mean, he's the kind of fighter that legendary Polish power, that's where it comes from, and he's also very hard to knock out. He's got that body type. I really like it. Intense stare down, and they were really staring deep into each other's eyes. This is one that both men, you could almost feel like they were looking for weakness. They were looking for an opportunity, and neither one showed it. So this is a fight that I feel should be lined a whole lot more closely than it really is. And I went ahead and made the jump again. I'm on Jan Blachowicz. You can get him right now as high as plus 230 out there, and I think that's a really good spot. once again, we waited on everyone to bet on Dominic Reyes. I feel like the line got a little inflated. Whether he is able to get that early knockout that he's talking about or have this thing go a full 25 minutes, which I am more leaning towards the over. I actually have a bet on the over 2.5 on this one as well. I think that a very, very sneaky value line would be if you wanted to take Jan Blachowicz by decision. You're getting right around 7 or 8 to 1 on that line. And as much as we talk about the legendary Polish power, Reyes is not a guy that's ever been knocked out. And Jan, he's only knocked out the chiniest fighters the division has to offer. I think this thing's going to be hairy. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think there's going to be a lot of grappling and leg kicks involved. I think this one gets to the championship rounds. And if it makes it to the judges' scorecards, Jan by decision at 7 or 8 to 1, that's worth a sprinkle. Main event time, folks. Israel freaking Adesanya comes in at 184. That's right, 1 pound under the allowance. No issues, stoic, threw up the peace sign. This man is locked in. He is so ready for this fight. Paulo Costa came in at 185. He was actually the first one to the scale, making a point, which you got to respect it, right? He's always had the little asterisk next to his name that he's made 186 always. He's never made 185 on the dot, but he had to make that for championship weight this time around, and he made it look easy. He got it done, and he looked as good as ever. I mean, this dude is completely muscled, a brick shit house. I know I always say that, but that's really the only way to describe it. And for the face-offs, Paulo actually wore his black belt. Now, I don't know if any of you caught the or the pre-weigh-in conference. There was a little back and forth about his black belt and how he gets tired grappling and he doesn't submit anybody, and Izzy didn't believe that he actually was a black belt, and stuff like that. So he wore the black belt to the face-offs, and then he actually brought a little piece of white string and tossed it to Israel Adesanya, which almost incited a brawl. Izzy took offense to that and threw it right back at him. This one's heated. This one is heated, folks. It's going to be a great fight, and I'm already on the over 2.5 in this spot. I like Israel Adesanya here. I feel like the line has gotten a little out of control. I do think it's about where it is supposed to be. Israel Adesanya being a minus 200-ish favorite. I think that's about right. But the bookmakers opened it at even money. And if you got in on Izzy early, you did your job well. Now, if you're taking Costa at plus 160, plus 165, I can't hate that. This dude is a monster and he deserves to be here. So you've got every opportunity. Go ahead, take that big, juicy underdog and roll those dice. You go for it. But how I see this fight playing out is using the big cage. I think Israel Adesanya is going to be able to stick and move. I think he's going to be able to pick his spots. I think he'll be able to counter. He's also got excellent takedown defense. So if he's in Paulo Costa's head and Costa tries to come in and use that black belt, he tries to wrestle him, he tries to take him down, Costa doesn't have a 25-minute gas tank for that. If he starts wrestling, I think this is even more in favor of Israel Adesanya, and I'm not sure if he was actually going to do that or if he was just trying to send a signal at the weigh-ins. We will see. There's a lot of mental warfare going on here, and I see a lot of people saying that Costa is living inside Israel Adesanya's head rent-free and things like that. And man, you listen to the interviews, you listen to how this guy talks, he is in full control, and I've never seen him this focused and dialed in before, especially coming off of his past UFC title victory where he had the underwhelming performance against Yoel Romero. You've got a lot of people out there who are wanting to bet against him, who want to see him get knocked out, and I'm seeing nothing but love for Paulo Costa online, but this line keeps getting wider. This is one of those spots where all your favorite Twitter handicappers, all your favorite bettors who are looking to make a move here, they're all on Paulo Costa. And somehow that line on Israel Adesanya has creeped from minus 120 to minus 185. I think the real money, I think the sharp money is on Israel Adesanya, and I wouldn't be surprised if this line gets even wider before fight time. So what I did is I'm going to go ahead and put my post-weigh-in recap thought process here to the test. I've done a parlay of Juan Espino because he's the spot that I really wanted to hammer. He's the one who I think is going to just maul Jeff Hughes. The only problem for me is I don't know if he's going to land a knockout, a submission, or if he'll simply be able to dominate him for 15 minutes because Jeff Hughes is notoriously hard to finish. So because of that, I don't want to play a prop on it, and that minus 300 price tag, that's pretty steep. So I parlayed Juan Espino with Israel Adesanya. That's the side I liked to begin with. I know the line has gotten a little bit wide. I may have missed the value bet on it, but putting him in the parlay essentially negates that because I'm getting plus 105 on this parlay. As long as Juan Espino does his job, I'm going to have 2 units have plus 105 on Israel Adesanya, and I think that's the place to be. That's the post-weigh-in show for UFC 253, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in and hanging out with me. Please press that like button down there. Subscribe here to Odds HQ. Give me a follow over at Die Hard MMA Pod if you haven't already. If I tweet any picks, bets, action, that is exactly where you'll find it. And remember, folks, I am not a professional sports bettor. I am only telling you what I am betting. I'm a lifelong MMA fan, and I'm a degenerate gambler. So tail at your own risk. Make sure you think through these things yourself. And remember, if you click that button and make a bet, that's your choice, my friends. So let's keep that in mind. We're going to have a great fight night on Saturday. I am so excited for it. Positive vibes, good energy. Be kind to your neighbors, and let's do our very best to make some money. Good luck, everybody. Let's roll.